Hi, and welcome to make a tic-tac-toe game using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. My name is Scott Bartow, and this class is being offered to you by the Clifton Park Half Moon Library. And we have a bit of coding to do today, so like the title said, we're going to be coding in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to create this tic-tac-toe game. And if you look at my screen, this is going to be the end product of what we're going to create today. So, we have the heading tic-tac-toe, and then underneath that, we're going to have player X's turn. And then we're going to have our tic-tac-toe board. And then on the bottom, we're just going to have a reset button. So we can clear the board when we're done playing and start a new game. So I'll just demonstrate how the game is going to function. And let's see, so the player S starts the game off. So if I'm player S, I click here and S goes on. Now it says player O's turn. So if I click on any square, an O comes up, and then it reverts back to player's S turn, and so on and so on. So I'll put an S there. I'll do an O there. I'll put an S down here, and I'll put an O there. And down below it says player 01 because I have 3 in a row. And then if I hit the reset button, it will clear the screen, and we'll be able to play the game again. All right, and we'll start over. All right, so that's the end product of tonight's class. And we're going to start off by creating an HTML page. Right, so. All right, so first we're going to be developing our programs in Notepad++. If you have a Windows machine, it automatically comes with Notepad, the generic version. But tonight we're going to be using Notepad++. If you want to download Notepad++ to your computer, it's easy to do. Just go out there on the internet and download a version for yourself. And let's see. All right, so let's close this out. All right, so let's all right, so let's create a you can see my Notepad session over here. Let's just expand that. All right, so I went into Notepad++, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a nice HTML template file. And so the first thing you need in your HTML file is doc type. Exclamation point, doc type in capital letters, space, and then HTML. And then we'll do a closing, a greater than sign. Remember, HTML is tag based, all right? Everything is written in tags. Then we're going to have open the HTML. And then way down below, we'll do a closing HTML, which is a / and then the HTML tag. That makes it closing. All right, then every HTML file program has 2 sections. It has a head section, so I'll do an opening head tag, and then I'll do a closing head tag. All right, and we're going to have a body section. Body. And then I'll do a closing body tag down below. All right. And we don't need all these spaces. All right. So what goes in the head section is what is information about the web page. All right. So like we might have a title section, a title tag. And you should put this on one line, and the title would just call it tic-tac-toe. And then I'll do a closing title tag. All right, so that's information about the web page. And then in the body section, we'll do what goes in the body section in HTML is what gets displayed on the web page. All right, so let's just test this out. We'll do an H1 tag. H stands for heading, and H1, it goes H1 all the way down to H6. H1 will have the biggest font size. All right, so we'll just do an H1, opening H1, and we'll say, tic-tac-toe game. All right, and then do closing H1. All right, so that's our basic template, our basic HTML template. So now we're gonna come up here and we'll do a file, and then save as. And let's create a folder. All right. So got my folder and all right. So I'm just going to go to my C drive, and I'll create a folder. I'll create a new folder, and I'll call it tic-tac-toe. All right, so C drive and then tic-tac-toe. All right, hit enter. Now I've got a new folder called tic-tac-toe. I double click on it, and the save as type is always going to be normal text file when you're working with Notepad++. So what we want to do is we want to click on the drop down arrow and then scroll up to the top, and we want to choose all types. All right, and the file name is going to be index.html. Hit enter, and now our file is all saved. And you see in Notepad++, once you save the file as a certain file type, like in this case HTML, now the tags turn blue. The text, like tic-tac-toe game or tic-tac-toe, turns black, and up here the doc type HTML tag remains black. All right, so now that we have that, what we have to do is we have to go into File Explorer and run our game for the first time. All right, so if in the Windows computer, go down to the lower left-hand corner, right click on it, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up. On my computer, I'm on a Windows 10 computer. Click File Explorer. All right, and my folder is on the C drive. So C drive, and I'll go down to tic-tac-toe. Double click on that, and it should show the files that are inside my tic-tac-toe folder. And it's an index file, and it's set up to go to Chrome. So please have your file run in the Chrome web browser, because that's what I'll be using tonight. And if you double click on this index.html file, it'll run it in the web browser, in the Chrome web browser session. So I double click on it, and it comes up, and you can see my H1 tag is tic-tac-toe game. All right, so that's being displayed in the body section. And then up here, I can't really see it. No, good. Up here you have the title is tic-tac-toe. So you can see the tab gets the title tag. All right, so we have our program working. All right, and what I'll do is I will shrink that down, move it over. All right, I'm gonna move you up here somewhere. Okay, all right, Okay, so now let's go back to Notepad++. All right, so now I've got my Notepad++ over here on the left side, and then we got my web browser with my HTML file being run on the right-hand side. All right, so now let's finish up our HTML file before moving on to our CSS file. HTML, by the way, stands for Hypertext Markup Language. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets, and JavaScript is JavaScript. So HTML, for those that haven't really worked with web development languages before, HTML is the foundation. It's the shell of a web page. All right. On a house, it would be the foundation, the walls, the roof. And CSS is what gives the what makes the web page look pretty, right? So CSS gives it style. So on a house, using a house analogy, CSS would be the paint, the furniture, the pictures on the wall. And then JavaScript is what makes a web page functional, makes it dynamic, interactive. And using the house analogy, JavaScript is the electricity, the plumbing, the refrigeration, the air conditioning, all right, all those things that make a house functional. All right. All right, so let's finish the shell, which is our HTML page. All right. So up in the head section, we've got our title tags. And what we want to do is we want to add a couple of meta tags. All right, so let me just go here. All right, so here we go. All right, so so what I'm going to do is I am going to let's see. I'm just going to copy in some meta tag information, and then we'll go over it, and also some links. Let's see. All right, so copy all this. All right. All right, so we've got our title tags, right? Now let's populate this. All right, so, okay, so we have 3 meta tags. I want to use these. All right, so the first one is, and the meta tags are just an opening tag. There is no closing meta tag. All right, so it's just an opening meta tag. All right, so the first one is meta. So create an opening meta tag, and then inside the opening meta tag, we're going to add an attribute called char set. So CHARSET. All right, so that attribute is going to equal, and we're going to give it a value, double quotes, capital UTF-8, double quotes. All right, so we're using that character set, UTF-8. The next meta tag, right, is I want you to create an opening meta tag. Then inside of it, we're going to give it 2 attributes. Okay, you can see in Notepad++, the attributes are highlighted in red, like char set, this next meta tag, we're going to do HTTP-EQUIV equals double quotes X-UA-compatible, capital C, compatible, double quotes. All right. Then the space separates the attributes inside the opening meta tag. And the next attribute is content equals double quote IE equals edge double quote. All right, and then now we're down to our final meta tag. All right, so we got meta. So do an opening meta tag, and then we'll do 2 attributes inside of it. All right, you got name equals double quote viewport double quote space, and the next attribute is content equals double quote width equals device dash width comma space initial dash scale equals 1.0 double quote. All right, so those are our 3 meta tags. And now add a space, and we're going to do, you can create 3 link tags. All right, and so the first link tag, is going to be just create an opening link tag, and then we'll create 2 attributes inside the opening link tag. So rel equals double quote style sheet double quote space href equals double quote style.css double quote. And basically this is going to link out to our CSS file that we're going to create after our HTML file. All right, next link, create an opening link tag. And this link tag is going to have 2 attributes. First one, rel equals double quote pre-connect double quote space href equals double quote https colon / fonts dot gsstatic.com. Double quotes. All right, and then the final link is linked. So an opening link tag, the attribute, 2 attributes inside of it, href equals double quotes https colon / fonts.googleapis.com / css2 question mark family equals capital I TIM ampersand display equals swap double quote and space between attributes, so space rel equals double quote style sheet double quote. And then the final, so we need those 3 links, but then we need a script tag to call our JavaScript file. All right, so create an opening script tag and a closing script tag. And then inside the script tag, we're going to have, inside the opening script tag, we're going to have an attribute src for source equals double quotes dot / index.js. All right, so that's going to be our JS file, index.js. And up here, we're going to be calling a CSS file called style.css. And that's going to be it for the head section. Now we have to go to work on the body section. All right. So I am going to close down. I'm going to put the meta tags together, and I'll put the link tags together. All right, and then script file. All right. So that's our head section. Now down in the body section, we can get rid of the H1 tags. That was just to make sure that our HTML file was running correctly in the web browser. So we can delete that. And then let me go into here and I'll show you what we're going to have to put in. All right. All right, so indented in the body section. Oops, didn't take. All right. Normally, I would go through each of these. I would type in each of these parts of the code, but we're just not going to have enough time to do that. This class probably should take 2 classes at least to get through. So I just want to make sure we have it all done just in one session. So what we're going to have is take this and indent it. Good. All right. So everything's lined up. All right. So inside the body section, we're going to have indented. We're going to create an opening main tag and a closing main tag down here. A bunch of lines down to a closing main tag. All right. Then indented inside, in between the main tags, the opening and closing main tag, we're going to have 4 sections. So I want you to create an opening section tag and a closing section tag, a couple lines down. All right. And copy that block and paste it 3 times underneath, because we're going to have 4 sessions altogether. Here, I'll spread them out a little bit. And this is the section. Actually, we're going to have 5 sections, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. So once you have those 5 sections all set up, right? 5 section blocks, right? With an opening section tag, closing section tag. Go back up to the first section tag block. Let's add the attribute inside. Attributes can only be added inside an opening tag, never inside a closing tag. All right. So inside the first section block, add the attribute class equals double quote title, double quote. And then indented inside that section, we're going to add an opening H1 tag on one line and a closing H1 tag. And in between the H1 tag, opening H1 tag and closing H1 tag, type in the text tick, space, tag, space, toe, with capital letters for each word. All right. And that's our first section block. All right. Now come down to the second section block, and let's add the attribute class equals double quote display double quote. And in between, let's do player. And then we're going to do an opening span tag. And then we'll do a capital X here. And then a closing span tag. And then after the closing span tag, do an apostrophe S space word turn. So player S's turn. Now what we're going to do is inside the opening span tag, back here, add the attribute class equals double quote display dash player space player capital X. All right, because when the game is being played, originally it's going to say player S's turn, but it's going to change that to once player S is on the first time, it's going to change this to player O's turn. So because we have span, this capital S being wrapped with the span tags, we're going to use some JavaScript to to change the player from player X to player O as the game's being played. All right, come down to the third session block. And inside the opening tag, do class equals double quote container, double quote. Then indented inside this section, do a div tag. So an opening on one line, do an opening div tag and a closing div tag, right? And then give it, inside the opening div tag, give it an attribute class equals double quote tile, double quote. And then once you have that done, I want you to copy this div tag line and paste it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 times underneath. All right, so each one of these is going to be a tile, right? We're going to have 9 blocks for the tic-tac-toe game board, right? 3 columns and 3 rows. All right, and that's what this is doing. A div tag is just a div is for divisor, and it's basically a container, right? So each one of these is going to be a container holding one of the tiles of the game board. All right, once you come to that, come down to section 4, and this is all on one line. And what you do is add the attribute inside the opening tag, class equals double quote display, space, announcer, space, hide, double quote. All right, so basically we're giving it 3 classes. We're giving it the display class, the announcer class, and the hide class. And when you're done with that, come down to the final section in our HTML file and give it, in the opening section tag, give it an attribute class equals double quote, controls, double quote. And then indented inside of this section, we're going to do an opening button tag and a closing button tag. In between the tags, we're going to type in the words capital R reset, right? So remember from our game, we're going to have a reset button at the bottom, which will clear the board and allow you to start the game over. All right. And then one more thing you have to add in the opening button tag, we have to add the attribute ID equals double quote reset, double quote. So we give this button an ID of reset. And that is it for your HTML. So now I want you, when you're all done coding, I want you to save this. All right, just save your file. We've already saved it once as index.html. Then go over to your browser session. Over here, you can see on my right-hand side, all you have to do is refresh it. Boom. All right, so if you look up here, in the first section block, we have tic-tac-toe, and that's being displayed. We have an H1 tag displaying the heading tic-tac-toe. Then down in the section block, we have player X's turn, and that's what I have. Then we don't see the board yet because we have to add some CSS and JavaScript for the board to actually be displayed. But then if you go and we don't see the fourth section, display, announcer, hide, because once again we need CSS and JavaScript for this to work and be displayed. And then the final section is the button, the reset button. And if you look over on the right in my web browser, I have a nice reset button. All right. Okay. So now let's move on to CSS. All right. Okay, so I want you to open up a file and do file new. All right, and let's take a look at some of the first. Let's look at some of the first CSS that we have to add. So CSS, remember, is just adding style to your website. All right. All right, so we've got several styles to add, all right? And let's just do those real fast. All right, copy them. Then I'll go over to my new CSS file and display them. All right, so let's start. What I'll do is I will I need to copy all of it. Let's see, actually. That's not it. That's space. All right. And all right, so let's see. All right, so the way CSS is formatted, what I've got is asterisk is just for all tags. All right, so the way CSS works is you assign a style to, you select a tag in your HTML file that you want to assign styles to. All right, so this very first style, we're selecting all by doing asterisk, space, open curly bracket, and then a few lines down, we do a closing curly bracket. And then indented inside the curly brackets, we do the styles, all right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do padding, colon, space, 0, semicolon. Semicolon in CSS is used to concatenate the styles. So if you have more than one style, you just put a semicolon at the end of the first style, and then you can go down to the next line and add the second style, et cetera, et cetera. So we have, besides the padding style, we're going to do margin colon space 0, semicolon, and then we're going to have font dash family colon space single quote capital I-T-I-M single quote comma space cursive semicolon. All right, and then so that's our first style that we should have. All right, and then let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right, so we have quite a few more styles to go. So the first style, we used an asterisk to put these styles of padding, margin, and font family on every tag in our HTML page. All right. Now the next style is dot background. So dot background, what it's doing is it's calling. When you preface the when you want to call a class and give style to a class, then you preface the class name with a dot. So it's dot background. Background is the class name. If we go back to our HTML file, where do we use background as a class name? All right, so right here. So the main tag has a class equals background. All right. So over here, whenever you have so our main tag is going to have these 3 styles. Background is color, right? And this is using a hash formula of hashtag 12181 capital B, and that is a certain color. I believe it's black, right? I think the game is going to be black. If you go over here, right? So the background of our main tag, the main screen, is going to be black, right? So this hash value right here is probably for black. And you can look it up on the internet. Just look up the hash value, this hash value, and it'll tell you what color it is exactly. All right. And it's giving you the height, it's giving you padding top of 1 pixel. All right, and that's what we're doing for the rest of the CSS. All right, so now for the class title, we do dot title. So we do a selector first. We want to select the class in this case, and we want to give the class of title all these styles, right? We want color of white, text align center, font size 40 pixels, and margin desktop 10%. All right, so if we go back to our HTML page, try and find the class, try and find the tag that has the class of title. Actually, it's not, yeah, it is title. Who has title? Oh, right here. The first section block has a class equal to title, right? And so that means that what's inside of this section block, which is just a heading tag that says tic-tac-toe, is going to have those styles. So the style is white. It's aligning that text centered, and it's making it 40 pixels high or size, and margin top of 10%. All right. So if you go and look at the game, the finished product, see the heading is in white, right? The text is white. Tic-tac-toe. It's 40 pixels big, and it's 10% margin, so it's 10%. Top right, bottom left. There's a 10% margin around this this heading tic-tac-toe. All right, so all right. And now we have display. And if you go back here to your index page, display, where's the class display? Up. This second section block has a class, well, it has a class display dash player. That's not it. So it's for this one down here, the fourth section block in our HTML page. We have display, the class display. So, so for that fourth one, 1, 2, 4, answer hide. Oh, okay. So this fourth section block is for when the game is over. We want to display something that says, you know, player S1 or player O1. All right. So CSS wise, we're going to make that text white. Font size is only going to be 25 pixels. Center it and give it a margin top, margin bottom. Hide. Then you have the hide class, display none, which means don't display it until JavaScript calls it. And then we have the container class, dot container, and we give the container class these styles. And then we have the tile class, right? Remember the tile class are going to be these blocks, these 9 blocks that make up the game board. All right. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 styles here. Remember, in the third section block in our HTML page, we have class equal tile, right? So each square is going to have those styles. And then we have dot player S and dot player O, all right? And we give it different colors, all right? Because remember, when you play the game, let's say player S goes first. So if I click here, player S is a green and player O is a bluish color. All right. So if we go back to our game, to our styles, player S, we're just giving it a color, and it's hex 09C372, which is a green, this greenish color. And then dot player O, we're giving it a different color, which is this blue. All right. And then we have dot controls, and dot button. For dot controls, the class controls down here, and the tag, the button tag. And that's how you do it in CSS. You can select a class, dot controls, and then separated by a space, you can also select a tag. the button tag. So if you go back here, controls is this section, right? And the button tag is right here inside that section. All right. So sorry to fly through the CSS, but we have a bit more to do with our JavaScript. And then we have the class restart with the background color of this hash value, which is, if you look at our game, it's a reddish pinkish color. And then we have the ID. When you want to reference a class in CSS, you do dot and then the class name. When you want to reference an ID, you do hashtag and then the ID name. So we want hashtag reset, give it a background color of whatever. ID restart. Okay. So if you look down here, the button has an ID equal to reset. All right. And restart is where? Where's the class restart? Background, title, display. Yeah, let's see restart. Display announcer, hide. Yep, I don't see a restart, but maybe that should be created in our JavaScript. All right, so now we have our CSS file all completed. And what we're going to do is we're going to do File, and we're going to save it. So File, Save As. All right, so Windows C, tic-tac-toe. Remember, you have to, the Save As type right here is always going to be normal text file. Click on the drop down, scroll up, and do all types. Then in the file name, click here, and we're going to call our CSS file style.css. Hit enter. And once you hit enter in Notepad++, now the CSS file becomes colorized, right? All right, so you have styles that are in blue, values that are black. You have the selector, like dot background, that's in like a pinkish red. All right. Okay. So now with that completed, back in the index.html file, if you scroll up here to the head section, if you look at the first link, right, it's link rel is equal to style sheet, href is equal to our file, style.css. All right. So go back to your browser session. Once you have your CSS file saved as style.css, go back to your browser session and let's refresh it. Hey, looks pretty good, right? Now it's right. So now we have HTML, our index.html file is creating the structure of our web game, and then we added CSS. We created a CSS file that's adding style to our HTML file page, and you can see it's all styled, right? But is it going to work? No, right? I click on any of the boxes, nothing happens. No X's, no O's. I don't. This line up here, player S's turn, never changes. It should go from player S's turn to player O's turn. And then if I hit the reset button, nothing happens. And the reason why is because we have to create a JavaScript file, right? JavaScript is what makes everything interactive and dynamic, right? HTML cannot do any of the things that JavaScript does, right? You have to have HTML as your shell. And then you have to have CSS for style to make it look nice. And then JavaScript makes it actually function and turn it into a game that can be played. All right, so that's what we have to do next. All right, so everything's working so far. Now, the final piece of the puzzle is to create a JavaScript file. All right, so let's open that up. First, I'll do a file, and I'll do new, right? Getting ready for our JavaScript file. And then let me open this up, copy it in. All right, so you can see we got a little bit of JavaScript to code. All right, so let's get to it. All right, so I'm going to pop this in. Okay. All right, so let's expand this guy a bit bigger. All right, let's start from the top. Okay. So first, you. All right. All right, so now we have our HTML done, our CSS is done. Now we have to do the JavaScript. All right, so now if you go back to your HTML file, all right, right here in the head section, we have a nice script tag, all right, and the source, the attribute is src source equals index.js, right? All right, that's going to be the name of the JavaScript file that we're going to create. And so in our HTML file, we're calling the JavaScript file index. Just like up here, we called the CSS file, style.css, all right? So in our JavaScript file, go here. Okay, we're going to start it off. So since we included the JavaScript file in the head section of our HTML file, we have to wrap everything in our code between an event handler. This is needed because our script will load before our HTML body will be parsed by the browser. If you don't want to wrap everything inside this function, feel free to add defer into the script tag or move the script tag to the bottom of the body. All right, so what we're doing is you want to create this first line, all right, window dot add event, add capital E event, capital L listener, open parenthesis, single quote, capital DOM, capital C content, capital L loaded, single quote, comma, space, open parenthesis, close parenthesis, space, equal, greater than sign, space, and then an opening curly bracket. And way down at the bottom, we're going to do a closing curly bracket, we're going to do a closing parenthesis, and a semicolon. All right, JavaScript, a lot of the statements in JavaScript end with a semicolon. All right, so we're going to wrap everything, we're going to put everything, all of our JavaScript is going to be indented inside this window.add event listener. All right, so once we had the reason for this is it's needed because our script, our JavaScript, will load before our HTML body will be parsed by the browser. All right, so to get everything in sync, we want to add this event listener to make sure that the DOM content from our HTML page is loaded first inside the web browser when we run it. All right, so in our JavaScript file, so everything should be indented inside of this window.add event listener. All right, so first we're going to add 4 constants, all right? And the keyword in JavaScript for constants is const, all right? And what we're going to do is we're going to add constant tiles equals array.from document.query selector all, parenthesis, single quote, dot tile, single quote, parenthesis. All right, so once you have these all done, these 4 constants, right? We'll go over them. All right, so we have a constant tiles, a constant player display, constant reset button, and a constant announcer. All right. So these are all global variables that can be used throughout the whole program, the whole JavaScript program, that will be used to control your game. All right. So we initialize a board, the tic-tac-toe board, with an array. So the first constant is an array, and we're using, it's an array of 9 empty strings. All right. This will hold the X and O values for every tile on the board. All right, we'll have a current player that holds the sign of the player who's active in the current turn. And yeah, we're using isGame attribute. So first we want to save references to our DOM nodes. All right, so that probably doesn't make sense. All right. So first, we're gonna grab all the tiles using document.query selector all, and you can see that in the first constant that we're creating here. So we're doing document.query selector all, and we're gonna grab all the tiles. So on our game board, we're gonna have 9 tiles: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, and that's what this constant is going to do. It's going to store that information inside the tiles as an array. All right, so once we have these constants done, then we're going to add some variables, all right? And variables are right down here, and we use the keyword in JavaScript let. All right, so we're going to create an array. So the first variable is board equal, and then when you do square brackets and put items inside in between the square brackets, that's creating an array, and we're going to create 9 empty values to represent the 9 different blocks of the game board. All right, so you have single quote, comma, space, single quote, comma, and we have 9 of these inside the square brackets to create an array for our game board. All right, and so by having that, these blocks are all empty. All right, so that they're starting off empty. All right, then we're going to create a variable let current player equal capital X. Right, so the first player is capital X. You always start the game with the S player starting. And then we have let is game active equals true. So this, we're giving it a Boolean value. Boolean is either true or false. In JavaScript, it's lowercase true or lowercase false. So we're saying is game active. So we're saying yes by giving it a value of true. All right, next, we're going to create 3 more constants. All right, so one constant will be player S underscore 1 equals single quote player S underscore 1. All right, so the point of this is the point of these 3 constants is to represent the different end of game scenarios, right? So either player S1 or player O1, or there's a tie, right? Neither one won, basically, which happens quite often in tic-tac-toe. All right, next, after you create those 3 constants, next we want to create indexes within the board, right? Indexes are they represent the different squares on the game board. All right, so we have the index 0, which would be the upper. If you leave the game board on the right hand side of my screen, 0 is going to be the upper left hand corner, and then 1 would be to the right of that, and then 2 would be over here to the right of that. So 0, 1, 2, and then we'll have 3, 4, 5, and then we'll have 6, 7, 8. Remember, in JavaScript, indexes start at 0. They don't start at 1. That you normally think the index for the upper left-hand corner of a game board would be 1, but it starts at 0 in JavaScript programming. It always starts at 0. All right, so that's the indexes within the board. All right, and this is just a comment. A multi-line comment in JavaScript is done with a / asterisk, and then you put your comments in, and then you end with a asterisk / All right, so this is just to let you know the indexes of the game board are 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, underneath that comment, we're going to create a constant. All right, so const is the keyword for constant, and we have winning conditions equal, and then open square bracket, and then down below we have closing square bracket semicolon. All right, so these are all the winning conditions, right? And so we're going to have an array within an array. The first line is square bracket 0, comma, space 1, comma, space 2, closing square bracket, comma. All right, so the first winning condition is 0, 1, 2. So that would be here 1, 0, 1, 2. So the top row would be all in S's or all in O's, and that would create a winning condition. And then it just goes down the line. Then we have 3, 4, 5. We have 6, 7, 8. We have 0, 3, 6, and which would be the column to the left. And we have 1, 4, 7, which is the middle column, and 2, 5, 8, which is the right hand column. And then we'll have the two diagonal situations, 0, 4, 8, and 2, 4, 6. All right, those are all our winning conditions. There are only 8 winning conditions: 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, and 2 diagonal. All right, now let's create a function. All right, so we have to create a function called handle, capital R result, capital validation, open parentheses, close parentheses, space, curly bracket, and then down below, somewhere down below. Let's see. Where's the function? Oh, it's way down here. Okay. So all the information for this function called handle result validation is going to be in here. Well, so within this function, we're going to create a variable. So it's let round capital W1 equals false. So give it a Boolean value of false. And then we'll do a loop, for loop. So FOR, and then space, and then parentheses, and then the condition we're looking for. So let I equals 0. When I is less than or equal to 7, you add 1 to it. So I plus plus. Close out the parenthesis, space, curly bracket, and then you put a curly bracket down here lined up with the F and 4. All right, so this, and then inside that, intended inside the for loop is what happens when the loop is executed. And here we create a constant winning condition equals winning conditions. square bracket I, square bracket. Constant A equals board, square bracket, win condition 0. Constant B, board, win condition 1. Constant C, board, win condition 2. Right? So these win conditions are winning conditions, win conditions. We have that up here. Let's say, all right. So if A is blank, B is blank, or C is blank, continue. If A equals B and B equals C, round 1 equals true. And then break out of the loop. All right. So handle result validation. So it's basically looking to see if you have a winner. So this function is basically looking across the board to see if you have S's in 3 positions that allow it to be a winner, or O's in 3 positions that allow it to be a winner. So if, so now down below we have a conditional. So if round 1, if it's true, right? And see up here, if this happens, then round 1 equals true. If that's true, then announce player equals S, player S1, and is game active? False. So now the game is not active any longer, right? Because player S1. If the board that includes, announce a tie. All right. All right. So up here for this condition, if round 1 announce that the current player equals, if the current player equals S, right? Because we have a winner, and if the current player, when the game was won, if the current player was S, then we say player S1. If it wasn't, then we say player O1. And then we have another condition down here. If the board includes blank, then announce a tie, right? So that covers the winning conditions, right? And then now we create a constant, announce equals type, and we're going to do a switch, all right? So, the switch statement in JavaScript basically says, depending on the value, all right? So the type in this case is either player O1, and then we'll announce player O1, or player S1, and then we'll announce player S1, and the last case is a tie, announce that it was a tie. All right. Then we have another constant is valid action. That's return false. And then we have a constant update the board index. That board index equals the current player. All right. And then, so that's during, while the game is being played, we do update the board and change the player, right? So if player X shows, then you're going to change the player to player O. If player O goes, he was the current player, then you change the player to player S. All right, so that's what this is all about, the change player constant. And now we have the constant user action. If is valid action and is game active, then we just continue on playing. And finally, we have the constant reset the board. And so reset board equals that. Board equals all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So so reset the board. So if you hit the reset button, you want to come to this constant and reset the board, and basically make the board blank again with this line. Is game active? It becomes true, right? So now you've reset it. You hit the reset button over here on the right, and it will clear the screen by doing this, making each square blank. And then it'll make the Boolean value is game active true. So we're ready to start over again. And once we hit a square, it's going to fill it. And tile street style, okay. And then we have down here, we have tiles dot for each tile index that add event listener click. So you're listening for a click in each of the boxes. And once you have that click, you register what index you're on. Remember, each box, the upper left-hand corner starts with 0, and then to the right is 1, and to the right again is 2, and then down below 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then finally we have reset button dot add event listener click. So if I click on the reset button, it's going to reset the board, right? And the reset board is up here, and it will clear the board out. It'll set is game active to true. The announcer will be hidden, and by announcer I mean announcing who won the game. And so that's it. So with JavaScript, with our JavaScript file being complete now, we're going to come up here and we'll do a file, save as. And remember, the save as type has to be, you click on the drop down and you scroll up, click on all types. And then for the file name, you're going to do index.js for JavaScript. Hit enter. And now back in Notepad++, we're going to see that the colors changed again. Constants and ifs and for loops and functions, they all turn blue. Values might turn reddish, pinkish. Comments turn green, like this comment here. All right, so once you have that saved, remember in our index file, up in the head section, we have this line, this opening script tag, closing script tag, and we're basically calling index.js. And so once you have your JS file saved, then you can go into the browser, which is right here, and I should refresh the page. All right, everything looks the same, but now that we've added JavaScript, it's got functionality. It's interactive now. So once I hit any of these squares, so it says here, player X's turn. Once I hit a square, an X will fill that square, and up here it'll say player O's turn, and I'll be allowed to hit a square, and an O will be filled. All right, so I'm gonna try it. So I'll hit the middle square for S, and an S appears, and up here it says player O's turn, and I'll click here and an O, and then see the player S. Now it's turned to player S's turn. I'll go there, go here, I'll go there, and I'll go here, and I'll go there. Player S1, right? So with any basic rule for programming is you have to test all conditions, right? So I just tested the condition when player X wins, right? And down below the announcement says player S1. All right. So now let's test the condition of resetting the board. I hit reset, the board's reset. Up here it says player X's turn, which it always will start with. And now I am going to test the condition of letting player O win the game. Down below, the announcement says player O won. All right, let's reset the game so we know that's working. And the final test will be a tie. So I'll start with X, I'll go to O, I'll do X, I'll do O, I'll do X, I'll do O, and I'll do X, I'll do O, and I'll do X. Tie. It just says tie. All right, so we tested all the conditions, player S winning, player O winning, and a tie. And we also tested our reset button to make sure the board game, the game board gets cleared out and player S's turn is displayed up here and we're ready to go and start the game over. So I'm sorry if this class was a little bit rushed. There's a lot to it, and I hope you were able to get something out of it. And I especially hope that you see the relationship between HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and how they all work together to create either web page, websites, web applications, or web games. All right, that's all three things are lumped under web development. And it's just amazing what you can do with those three tools working together. And I think this tic-tac-toe game is really pretty nice. And hopefully you were able to get some things out of tonight's tutorial. Once again, my name is Scott Bartow, and this class has been generously offered to you by the Clifton Park Half Moon Library. Have a good night, and thanks for joining me.